Okay. Whew. Hello. Happy New Year, everybody. What's going on? Let's look at all of these. Happy New Year. It is a song featured on Stranger Things, but it's actually from a movie called The Never-Ending Story. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's pretty fantastic. It's a classic. I'm a little congested today, I'm sorry. Okay, enjoy Little Women. Let me know how it is. I've heard it's a very good movie. Can't wait to see it. Okay, I'm going back to the bottom. Woo! How is everyone? I'm great. I had a really good New Year's and a Christmas holiday. Tessa?
Yeah.
What'd we do?
We went to Canada.
We went to Canada for Christmas, and it was crazy awesome.
San Francisco and Colorado.
Thank you. Yeah, so we went to Canada. We went to Prince Edward Island, where Tessa's from, and we had a great time. And then we went to San Francisco and saw my parents. We went to Colorado for the New Year to hang out with my friend Daniel. And then we went back to San Francisco, hung out with them, and now we're home. So, very good time. How about you guys? How were your New Year's holidays? Hi. Everyone says hi. Tessa?
Oh, hey guys.
So, I see some people are asking. Today we studied the whole time. That's good. That's probably good. Okay, so today we are discussing Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. Now, I have to put this down for a hot sec, so just give me some... Let's see, we're going to try to do some innovation here. That seems to work out pretty well. Whoa, this green wall makes me look pretty orange. Okay. So, we're discussing the first 100 pages of Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. To me, that means we're stopping at chapter 8 today just for discussion purposes. Alright, that didn't work. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place today, it seems. Okay, so we're discussing up to chapter 8 for discussion purposes. Yes, we were supposed to finish the book, guys, but I want to discuss it in 2 different discussions so we have time to get the new books that I'm going to announce today. This way's better. Yes, we were supposed to read the whole book. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it's pretty good. Can we have the next books, please? Whoops. It was my iPad, so not my cell phone, so probably just as bad. So I have 2 new books to announce today that we will work on getting, and then next week when we finish the book, I will announce the other 2 books. That will be like the 4 books that we read until May. Yeah, I'm a little congested today. I don't know what's going on. Oh yeah, Tessa, that might work. Perfect. Look at that. Everyone needs a Tessa. So we have 2 books that we'll announce today, 2 books we'll announce next week, and we're talking about the first 100 pages because I think it's a good place to break it up. Anyway, so today we are talking until chapter 8, which is actually exactly page 100, and it starts with the same suddenness that a barbarous boy yanks the larva of an antlion from its hole to leave it struggling in the sun. Jean-Louise was snapped from her quiet realm and left alone to protect her sensitive epidermis as best she could. On a humid Sunday afternoon, precisely 2:28 p.m., the circumstances leading to the end were these. Before this, that's the chapter where we first find the book that Aunt Alexandra's like, of course I read it, that whole thing. We're not going to talk past that. We're going to talk before that. So the introduction to one of our favorite characters. Like, we're back with Scout Finch. Really exciting. We're back with Atticus Finch, which I'm super excited about. We're starting to get, more of an understanding of Hank, or Henry Clinton. And Aunt Alexandra's back. Calpurnia even makes a couple of, comebacks. So let's start. And whoever said my hair looks amazing, thank you. Just woke up. So let's start with how we like to start. One word thoughts on the book so far. Scout is grown up, yes. Love Scout, disillusioned with Atticus. Aw. Jem, sad face. Yes, it's good to see Scout again. Her relationship with his family, it's like, Uncle, super interesting. Uncle Jack, super cool dude. I will say the fact that we lost Jem broke my heart as well, especially that small paragraph in the beginning when Aunt Alexandra kind of twists a knife at Scout, when she's like, he thought you were thoughtless. And then Scout has to go through this whole thing where she's like, no, he wouldn't believe that. And I feel so bad. Words, wanted to punch some people. Yep. Okay, so far, average. Not my favorite one. Okay, I thought this book is really good. Her uncle's not crazy at all. His mind is just on another level. I agree. Roller coaster. Yes. The Kender, a bit disappointed. Okay, interesting. Since we're only discussing up to chapter 8, I really like the flashbacks. Thank you, Kel Cesar. Yes, I agree. The flashbacks are some of my favorite parts, especially the revival was hilarious. And then Dill made an entrance again. Wish they went into more detail what happened to Jem. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Anyway, Jem's death compared to his childhood really stuck with me, considering I read Mockingbird first. Yes. I think this is my least favorite book we've read so far. Wow. I really like it, but still prefer the first one. It has a different pace than the book one. All right, I'm going to read you guys something, because I think it's actually really important to put this novel into context. Okay. So, no, where is it? Hold on. Sorry. Okay. It's a page, so bear with me, okay? This is interesting. I don't know if your book has this, but my book has this note from the publisher. Has anyone read them? So it says, Go Set a Watchman is Harper Lee's first novel. It was written in the mid-1950s and was submitted to a number of publishers by Harper Lee's agent Maurice Crane in 1957. In a submission letter to Evan Thomas of Harper & Brothers, Mr. Crane wrote, Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee will be an eye-opener for many Northerners as to the Southern attitudes and the reasons for them in the segregation battle. Also, and incidentally, Miss Lee can write. She's about 30 and bright as a button. So, what we find out in that first sentence is that she wrote Go Set a Watchman first, submitted it to publishers, and I will continue to read. One publisher, J.B. Lippincott, expressed interest in seeing the other work by Harper Lee. In April of 1957, Lynn Carrick of Lippincott received some material from Maurice Crane that Crane described as Harper Lee's second novel. She had written a good deal of this before starting the short novel you now have, Go Set a Watchman. Crane went on to write, I think some of the childhood stuff is wonderfully appealing. Possibly this longer and more substantial book would make a better start than the one you have. She says this could go on and on. I have suggested she keep on writing. She aims to break it off at the point where the brothers enter high school, leaving the 4 years younger sister to a lonely childhood. So she wrote this book second. So first. So I think it's interesting. We read it technically in like reverse order, as did most of the world. So I wonder if we were to read it again, if we would think differently of To Kill a Mockingbird now that we do this. But it makes sense, right? Thank you, Olivia. Hold on. Let me go back now through all your comments. Different pace. Could say hi to my friend Jess. Hi, Jess. Not my favorite book. Jem just dropped dead. No, I know. Jem and Scout made me want to read the first book. It was interesting. A lot of emotion. Oh my God, I miss Dale so much. Me too. We talked about the flashbacks. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to take care of that in a minute. All the moments with Scout and Jem was so precious. I really enjoyed the relationship. I did too. Horrible still didn't finish it. Yo, you got time. Don't worry about it. You can finish it by next week. Just get to page 100. Hey, guys, didn't get to finish the book in time for the live, but looking forward to everyone readings. I love to see Dylan and Scout interaction with both of them as grown-ups. Yes, isn't that interesting? I read To Kill a Mockingbird to be ready for this book while reading the Testaments. Maddie McCall. Okay, my copy doesn't have that either. I was so disappointed that Jem dying was just mentioned like it was nothing. I missed him. He deserved better. I think that is also reflective of the fact that she had to move on from that. Like, it happened, but at this point it happened when they were younger, and she just has to keep... Well, I mean, it happened 2 years prior to where we pick up in the book, so it's not that much time, but I think she's in a place where she has to kind of, like, figure it out, and I think it still really affects her, and that's why Anne Alexandra can still get her, and they actually use that really funny phrase where she's like, she got my goat, I think she says. I just thought that was cool. But realizing it was written first makes sense, I guess. But the fact they called her Jean Louise and not Scout really helped. This book makes me think of The Great Gatsby for the themes, because this book has the theme of disillusionment, too. Yes! Very cool. I really miss Jem. He had a great relationship. Jem deserves better than I mentioned. Having to read Kill a Mockingbird first, I just wish I hadn't read Ghost of Watchmen at all. Wow. Yes, Jem deserves better. Oh, I can't wait to... Yeah, I think that's one thing we're definitely going to go into a whole conversation about, is the complex relationship between Atticus and Scout. I think it's really an amazing relationship. I mean, at that time in the 50s, the way Atticus kind of, like his relationship with her is unlike other ones we've seen set in the same time period. Yeah, so let's keep talking. All right, Jem's death. Yeah. Random and very sad. I wonder why she had that happen. I don't know if it's because, in a way, she was dependent on Jem and she wanted to kind of really make Scout her own person. I don't know. What do you guys think? Why do you think that happened? Jem's death still gets Scout. In the now, it really has a big effect on her, and I think they are in a good place as siblings to each other. Well, what do you think of your mother's death? I don't understand. Was she sick, or did she commit a suicide? I love the father-daughter relationship they have. I think he's there to guide her, yes, but he doesn't put so much pressure on her like her aunt does. Not only that, but he also recognizes that she's a human being. When they get caught in the... I thought it was super funny when they get caught in the river, her and Henry, and her aunt storms into her bedroom and wakes her up and goes, how can you... You should be ashamed of yourself. And then he does the thing where he's like... have I embarrassed the family too far? Will we survive it? And then Atticus goes, we might. I didn't understand how that happened. Like, how did he die? Did they say that? Did I miss that? They didn't say. They say Jem just dropped dead one day. Give me 1 sec. All right, I'm back. Sorry. It's just that he just dropped dead. They didn't... Jem's death, they didn't say anything else about. I think Jem's death is a parallel to the mother's death, and then how it kind of affects the kids' lives going forward. I agree. That's interesting. Thank you, Annie. Remember, we're here to talk about Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. No other books. There's a lot of books if we're going to do that. Heart attacks. Oh no. This book was the most pre-ordered book since Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. That's crazy. But yeah, it seems that we're all kind of leaning into this. Jem died, and in turn, it made Scout more independent. I think that, but it also made Scout more cautious of decisions of the future. I think that might be one of the reasons why she's having trouble, up to the first 100 pages, having trouble with Hank. Because I feel like time feels different now. I was extremely surprised. I didn't expect it. And also, I agree with you guys that we had developed such a relationship with Jem and Scout in the first book. For us to find out the way that we did, that he was no longer going to be in this book, it was sad. Now, I do see some things of Jem like reflected in Henry, which I think is really interesting. Especially that, Henry is now Atticus' like right-hand man. I think any death in the family changes a person in some way or the other, whether we realize it or not. Did Harper Lee change a little bit the manuscript of Go Set a Watchman after having published To Kill a Mockingbird? Because that would explain why it felt like Jem's death was something that happened and not something. Okay, Camille, that's a really good question. I'm going to finish reading the page. It's just this little paragraph. So this material, the longer and more substantial book that Crane spoke about previously, would eventually be completed in 1959 and became the novel that would be published as To Kill a Mockingbird in 1960. The typescript of the earlier novel, Go Set a Watchman, was put away and did not emerge into public view until 2014, after Harper Lee's attorney discovered the typescript in a bank vault in Monroeville. After consulting with friends, Miss Lee agreed to have the typescript submitted to HarperCollins by her agent. HarperCollins acquired the North American publishing rights and went to publish the novel in July of 2015. Apart from a light copy edit, the novel was published exactly as it was written, without any further intervention by Miss Lee. So she didn't change that book at all. I think so too. Think about it. We have no relationship to Jem. We just know it's a person that meant a lot to her and died suddenly and really affected her. So if we were to go that way, if we had read this book first, we would have no relationship to Jem. And only upon reading To Kill a Mockingbird would we discover the fullness of their relationship and how much it really affected her. And how much it must have, which I think is actually interesting. It felt weird at first because Jem wasn't there, Dill wasn't there, and I was like, we're missing half of the characters. Yeah, I would agree. There were a lot of expectations then with Jem, but I think it was interesting. Yeah, so I feel like, okay, so we're talking about Jem. What do we think about Dill? How Dill's in Italy now, and he's kind of just wandering and doing his thing. What do you guys think about that? Okay, in this book, Scout is referred to as Jean Louise often. Is it a sign of her growing up, or is it a sign that after Jem's death, she's seen as the responsible adult next gen? I think it's that she's a grown-up woman now. I think that she's an adult, so she's called Jean Louise, and we only see her get called Scout when Atticus is like, come on, Scout, don't do that. So I think it is. I thought she'd marry Dill one day. Me too. But I think the father-daughter relationship makes a lot more sense when you read the books in reverse order. Yes. Which characters changed? Well, they all changed. They all grew up. And they had to have changed because of, Jem being gone. Oh, but how sad was it that Dill found out Jem was gone in a newspaper clipping? They forgot to tell him. Oh, I felt so bad about that. I know we're saying I think Jem deserved better, and now he just died, but I think that's also just the reality sometimes. People just die sometimes, and there's not really a reason or an explanation, or it's not justified. It's part of what happens, and people have to move on from that. And they have to grow from that still. I think that's what that is. I know we would like that all of our favorite characters have like deaths that mean something, but I think that can't always be true. It's not a Marvel movie. All you guys having pasta right now? I'm jealous. I'm going to go have pasta. Do you want a reason? Because I want it. We could have gotten a few more flashbacks with Jem. Yeah, but I think we loved Scout in the first book. She was the protagonist in the first book, as much as Atticus was. But really, we watched her go through this whole experience with what her father had to do in this town. And now we're learning more about the politics of the town, what it was like for her to grow up there and then leave and then come back, and all the pressure she feels that I'm sure if any of you have left your hometowns and you go back, you kind of feel like, oh, they still think of me as this person, and I'm this person, or I remember being in this world. It's a whole thing. Atticus, I don't think changed. I think he's grown because he's older now, but I don't think he's changed. To me, he still feels very similar, very, stoic and thoughtful and wise. Yeah, and we saw Atticus through a child's eyes before, through Scout's eyes. And Jem's eyes, I guess, too. They do say what Jean Louise worked in New York City. Can someone remind us? I'm so scared of posting a spoiler. I want to say something, but can't remember where it turns up in the book. If you can look through the book really quickly, that'd be awesome. If not, we're supposed to have read... Oh, hold off. Write it down. Bring it up next week, just in case. We don't want to spoil anything for anyone. I like Go Set a Watchman. I think Go Set a Watchman beautifully portrays the conflicts of thought patterns between two generations. I think that's a theme. The differences in generations. I mean, Aunt Alexandra and Scout's generation thinks a certain way, behaves a certain way, and believes people should act a certain way. Then World War II happened. And I think that's another thing that's pretty cool, this theme of like post-World War II, what's going on in the South. A lot is changing. In the 50s, it's right before the Civil Rights Movement in the United States. It's post-World War II, but before the Korean War, depending on where exactly it's set in the 50s. So it's this time when a lot of I think the adults in the world have seen a lot and gone through a lot as a world. Definition of generation with the complex relation of father and daughter. Yes. Honestly, to me, the book is really just started after chapter 8, like the actual moral conflicts, etc. Exactly, and that's why I figured we break it up like that. We have our introduction to this world, to these people again, to the relationship she now has with them, like Dill being over in Italy and they don't know where he is. She's now pseudo in love with Henry and Hank, and he's this great guy. Clinton's not good enough for a Finch, and because of that we find out Alexandra and Calpurnia, and we hear stories, and it's all setting up this world for the next part of the book. Um, I think it's actually really interesting. I don't know. I think it'd be cool to bring it up with your Georgia friends if they're the type of people that can talk about things and then are really like conversational. If not, then maybe you won't because it's a little. It could get political. It could get weird. That's all up to you. But I think that would always help. I think that's cool. Yeah. So let me look at my notes really quickly. Got a few. What I like that Atticus Alexandra has is and always will be a pain in the ass. Yes, she's a pain in the ass, but at the same time, she's doing what she believes is right for Scout, and that's what I think. Kind of, is it limiting? Yeah, but it's that older generation. Think of what the like. At this time, we have to look at the world of the 1950s in the South United States. You have to think of what gender roles were at that time. You have to think about what was expected of her because of Mr. Finch, like Atticus, like all of this, like the fact that she said the only time she wore a hat was to Jem's funeral. I have to agree. I like Dr. Finch too. I feel like he'd be a member of our book club, except he'd know more than anyone. He'd be crazy. He's hilarious. I like that he kind of like read himself into like this eccentric personality, right? I feel like we've all known an Aunt Alexandra at one point, and especially I think people in different generations, we've all experienced this expectation from the generation prior to us. These are things I hear today in India. Honestly, it's like we move one step forward, two steps back. I'm telling you, yes, it's happening. Does anyone else get like Anne of Green Gables vibes from Scout? I know they're very different, but I also find them the same in they're very industrious and they're very like they're curious. I don't know. There's something about them that I find similar. Does anyone else feel that? Dr. Finn's a crazy uncle. Yes, she wanted Jean-Louise to represent Mako standards because that's what she was taught was expected of a woman when she was growing up. I think Aunt Alexandra is probably in her 60s or 70s like Atticus. I don't remember if she's older than him or not. Atticus, they say, is 72. So, like, while we can say that's not cool on Alexandra, we can't be mad at her for doing what she believes is best. We can acknowledge the parts of it that are constricting, and we can try to, if we ever met someone like that, we can try to tell them that's not cool. But we can't shut her down like that, because I think at the end of the day, she wants to have Scout's best interest in hand, whereas Atticus actually does. Atticus doesn't want Scout to come live with him because he has arthritis. He wants her to be an independent woman. Something that we were only starting to see very slowly. I mean, in the 50s, not really. We didn't see that until the 60s and 70s. Right, T? Exactly. So what? Okay. Because they're both two free independent spirits, as free as independent as a child can be, but yeah, they give off the same vibes. Thank you, Rita. I think Scout and Anna could be friends. Okay. I think of Aunt Alexandra as Rachel Lynde from, that was one of my notes. I couldn't find it. Of Anne of Green Gables. Like, I see her, Rachel Lynde expects Anne to behave a certain way, and blah, blah, blah. Thank God that Anne had Matthew to kind of, like, coax her into it. But Anne also was growing up in a different world, too. much older than that. Now we're in like we have to look at the time period. Like we can't judge people by today's standards. We have to look at what they were going through and say, okay, I'm glad things have changed here, but as we've read from one of the comments, it hasn't in some places, and that's what's interesting. The only difference between them is that Anne is still a baby and Scout is grown up like true badass, a believer. Yes. Well, Jordana, my argument there is like we see Rachel Lynn soften up to Anne because Anne is bringing in this whole other world. Aunt Alexandra, although doesn't soften outwardly, she does it in a way that she can. When Atticus loses Jem and Atticus develops arthritis, she gives up her life and goes and lives with Atticus so that Scout wouldn't have to. And I think, like Scout says, she's humbly gracious of that. And I think that's her way of softening, is saying, all right, I may not agree with Scout living in New York and being an independent woman, a spinster, as Scout says in the beginning of the book, but I'm going to let her do it. And I think that's kind of where that comes in, because we have to recognize the place and time, in this book especially. The South, prior to the Civil Rights Movement, post-World War II, the roles of... that was the creation... Okay, in the 50s, in the United States, that was the creation of the nuclear family. That's when, mother, father, and 2 kids. That was the dream. That was what people were being told was what they wanted. They wanted to buy a house, have a life, and build a little family. And that's what was happening in the States at the time. And anyone that wasn't really conforming to that was seen as outside. And that's why we see all these really cool arts movements in the 60s and all of these movements. One of the first waves of feminism, I think, happens in the 60s. So the 50s is the precursor to that. And we have to, I think that really does allude a lot to what we're reading about here and how the world is being perceived. Did anyone... Yeah, thank you, Annie, for bringing that up. Did anyone find out what Jean Louise does? Yeah, Jean Louise and Alexandra aren't completely antagonistic. I like that. Alexandra is like Marilla when Anne first arrived at Green Gables. Marilla, too, wanted Anne to be a very good child and to make a very good impression on the town. Exactly. Someone please write a fanfic where Anne and Scout meet. That's pretty cool. Maybe Halloween costumes. Exactly, Jordan. I see that as what Alexandra's doing. But at the end of the day, she always has Scout's best interest at hand. Like when the news is going around the town that her and Hank were caught naked in the river, and Alexandra, although you could say that was selfishly to protect her own name, went out of her way to try to quell that before it ruins her reputation. And in that time, what was expected of women, that would have been very bad for Scout. Although Scout might have not cared. Alexandra would have seen that as not okay. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. Do you feel like Scout's opinion about Atticus is changing, will change, because she sees things differently, because she's mature now and makes her own opinions and impressions? I don't know. I think the way Scout sees Atticus will always be the way Scout sees Atticus, because Atticus, I don't find, has changed that much. There is one part that I think was very interesting. It's the first allusion to what I think the rest of the book is going to be talking about. It's when Atticus and Jean Louise gets home for the first time, sees Atticus, and then Atticus talks to her. It's page 24 of my book. He goes, he returned and drank a cup of scalding black coffee at an alarming rate of speed and said, Mr. Finch, I better be going. Wait a bit and I'll come with you, said Atticus. Feel like it, sir? Certainly. Jean Louise, he said suddenly, how much of what's going on down here gets into the newspapers? You mean politics? Well, every time the governor's indiscreet, it hits the tabloids. But beyond that, nothing. I mean, about the Supreme Court's bid for immortality. Oh, that. Well, to hear the Post tell it, we lynching him for breakfast. The Journal doesn't care, and the Times is so wrapped up in its duty to posterity, it bores you to death. I haven't paid any attention to it except for the bus strikes. The bus strikes? And that Mississippi business. Atticus, the state's not getting a conviction in that case was our worst blunder since Pickett's charge. Yes it was. I suppose the papers made hay with it. They went insane. And the NAACP? I don't know anything about that bunch, except that some misguided clerk sent some NAACP Christmas seals last year. So I stuck them on all the cards I sent home. Did Cousin Edgar get his? So, that part is alluding to what's going on in the country. The bus strikes that were happening. That would be, I believe... One sec. The bus strikes, that's literally referring to Rosa Parks, who, if you don't know, Rosa Parks was famous for sitting down in the front of the bus at the time when African Americans had to sit in the back. And when asked to move, she refused to do so, causing a strike of the bus systems in a lot of the parts of the South, Montgomery, Alabama, being one of them. And we're also in Alabama. So that, she's talking about what's really going on, but then we kind of slide back. And then, the second half of the book will dive into that even more so. I'm going to catch up now, sorry. The scene of Poe Dameron, yes. I haven't seen it yet, Rita. I haven't seen Star Wars yet. Skipping this. I think it happens to all of us. You grow up thinking your parents are always right, and then you grow up and develop your own opinions, and suddenly you're so disappointed in them. I don't think that's the way I look at it, because I'm not disappointed in my parents at all. My parents, I'm very proud of them. I think you grow up and you recognize that the people that were the holders of all the information you would have in the world as a child, that were the ones that felt when it was right to tell you and have you exposed to certain things, or sometimes were there, those people you recognize at some point are just people as well. And you're like, whoa. Well, I see my parents. I was like, my parents. I see them now as people who lived a life and were making their decisions as to what they thought was best. And I love them more for it, Now, does that mean they always agree with what's going on now? Maybe not. Does that mean that there are things that I feel differently about, or that we've grown together by learning about together? Yes. But yeah, I think it's just that you stop seeing them as or you start let me say it this way. You start seeing the humanity behind the superheroes. You're like, oh, these are superheroes. And then you grow up, you're like, oh, okay, they're real people like me. That makes me feel less pressure about the future. We always saw Atticus through Scout's eyes. This time around, we see who he truly is, yes. But I think now we have a different privilege. Okay, that's a different conversation, sorry. To the non-American Rosende readers, did you also stop reading to study more about the U.S. history and civil rights? Because I did. Good. That's what I'm glad. Next time, I'll have a little more information about that so that we can all be caught up. I probably should have done that before. Sorry. But I think the setting and time of this book is why one of the reasons it is why it is. And I think if you guys do extra study into the civil rights movement, which starts in the 60s, the late 50s, mid 50s, the mid 50s, but really gets a swing going in the early 60s. So if you look at that time period, and then you also have to look at post-war United States, so post-World War II, when everyone comes home, and what the country was like then, this boom of industry and everything that was happening in the States. So it gives you a really good setting. So if you want to kind of catch up on that and maybe get a little more of the book, I would do that. The symbol of a watchman is all about growing up, because Jean Louise is going to understand that she needs to become her own watchman, rather than relying on others to guide her. Yes. Good. I'm glad you guys are doing it. That's awesome. Maybe I didn't know. We've always seen Atticus through Scout's eyes, but a lot has happened. She's older now, and Jem died. Do you think she will see Atticus differently? I don't know. Maybe she's getting to that point where she's starting to see him as a person. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, happy birthday. Oh my goodness, 5 minutes. All right. We have about 5 minutes. So I can't wait to finish this book next week with you guys. Next Sunday, I will post with more time than I did today about the time for next week. Okay. So the first 2 new books. You guys know that I said with 2020, I wanted to start reading a little more nonfiction and bring that into the book club, which we're still going to have novels and stuff, so don't worry. But I think we always should start the year with a book that might teach us something, inspire us. I always want that book to have a purpose, the first book we read. So I was recommended this book by my mother because she felt for her it was like a really interesting way to think of the world. Now, I need you guys to be honest with me about finding this book, if it's possible, if you can. Keep me posted on that, and then we'll figure it out. So I'll be paying attention to Twitter the next couple days. So if you guys can or can't get this book, let me know, and we might have to push forward. But I think this book will be interesting. It's nothing like we've read before, because it's a nonfiction book. It's called The Power of Habit. I think it'd be a great way to start the year. I'm going to read the back for you guys. Ready? In The Power of Habit, award-winning business reporter Charles Duhigg takes us to the thrilling edge of scientific discoveries that explain why habits exist and how they can be changed. Distilling vast amounts of information into engrossing narratives that take us from the boardrooms of Procter & Gamble to the sidelines of the National Football League to the front lines of the civil rights movement, Duhigg presents a whole new understanding of human nature and its potential. At its core, The Power of Habit contains an exhilarating argument. The key to exercising regularly, losing weight, being more productive, and achieving success is understanding how habits work. As Duhigg shows, by harnessing this new science, we can transform our businesses, our communities, and our lives. So, it is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I will post a picture on the Instagram story right after the live when I save it. Okay, yes, I'll make a post about it, guys. So that's the first book that I think we should read in the beginning of the year because it's going to be 2020 is a new decade. And I want us to be developing, well, okay, let me speak for me because I can't say for all of us. I can speak for me. For me, I want to make sure that I'm developing habits that are positive, that inform what I care about and help me achieve the goals that I've set for myself. So I feel like we should analyze every new year and especially a new decade in this way where I feel like I should be like, okay, what have I been doing? What's been working? What hasn't been working? How can I help, remedy, fix, push forward to get something to achieve what I'm looking to achieve? So, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Yes, I actually had that book, thought about it, but I think this book will be a little bit more focused. So, yeah, it's a really famous book. It's been going around. I literally saw it in every airport that I was in for like 5 years. Like, it was always at like the Hudson bookstore or bookstores all over the world. So, if you can find it, great. If not, let me know. That's our first book. The second book we will be reading that I promised I would announce. Are we ready for it? Do you guys want to know right now? Okay, good. Yeah, I got it on Amazon. I know if you're in the States, Barnes & Noble. If you're in Canada, I'm pretty sure Indigo has it. Okay, cool. I recently read The Three Daughters of Eve by Elif Shafak, and it's great. Maybe we can read it anytime soon. Maybe. I'm gonna look into it. All right. So the second book is in honor of a film that's currently out. I was gifted this book for Christmas, and because of that, I was really excited to read it. So I decided we're going to put it in Rosende Reads. We're going back to a novel before we go back. We're probably going to go back and forth. So we'll go nonfiction, novel, nonfiction, novel for this so far. And maybe we'll go a little farther. I don't know. But Rita Orzo guessed it. Rita, you guessed it. It is Little Women. Oh my God. Little Women. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to see the movie. I'm gonna have to see the movie and then read it, which I'm okay with. But I'm very excited to read this book with you guys. It's a little longer than most of the books that we like to pick. So yeah, and that's why I picked it too. I knew it was a bestseller, so I knew it would be easier to find. But these are our first two books of the decade and the first two books of 2020. So enjoy. I'm very excited as well. I'm very excited for this book because it'll give us a good outline. And then I'm very excited for this book because I've only heard fantastic things about it. I'm going to read the back for you guys because I like doing that. Little Women transcends the boundaries of time and age. It is as popular with adults as it is with young readers. The beloved story of the March Girls is a classic American feminist novel, reflecting the tension between cultural obligation and artistic and personal freedom. But which of the four March sisters to love the best? For every reader must have their favorite. Independent, tomboyish Jo, delicate, loving Beth, pretty, kind Meg, or precocious and artistic Amy, the baby of the family. The charming story of these four little women and their wise and patient mother Marmee, enduring hardships and enjoying adventures in Civil War New England, was an instant success when first published in 1868 and has been adored for generations since. So, like this book, I will prepare a kind of a historical context for this book for those of you not in the United States, so you can understand what was going on at the time that this book was written and about the time that it was written about. Oh, cool, there's a quote by J.K. Rowling on the back. My favorite literary heroine is Jo March. It is hard to overstate what she meant to a small, plain girl called Jo, who had a hot temper and a burning ambition to be a writer. That's pretty cool. All right, so, like I said, for next week, we will talk about the rest of To Kill a Mockingbird, the rest of Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. So, we will discuss, sorry, I was reading the comments. Yes, it's going to get lit, Love that, Amy. Thank you. I will be using that a lot. You'll get tired of it, I promise. So, we will get lit with the rest of Harper Watchman. Go set a Watchman. Then we will go to The Power of Habit, and then we will have Little Women. And next week, I will tell you guys what we will be reading the next 2 books after that, so we have time to get them up. All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. Happy New Year. I hope that not only this year, but this decade is full of victorious wins. And you know what? There will be some defeats. But let not the defeats take away. Let them only inspire you to work harder, to stand up once again against them. Tessa's looking at me now, so now I'm self-conscious. But yes, let this year be full of awesome wins, and make sure, I think one of the most important things that this book, The Power of Habit, will help us with is setting goals and finding ways to achieve them. So I challenge all of us to take like the next week to kind of just analyze what we want in our lives, what we want to be reading, what we want to be eating, what we want to be doing, and who we want to be spending time with, and make sure that everything we're doing is benefiting our ultimate goals. Yeah. So Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year, all. Remember to continue being curious, continue asking questions and questioning everything, continue exploring, continue growing, and continue to be... I don't know why I was expecting someone to like say it and finish it, but...
Me?
Yeah. Continue to be forces of positive change in your environment. But yes, Rita, you caught me. Yes, so Happy New Year, all. I will see everyone next week. And talk to you guys soon.